Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today in front of me is a sample dress that I have made here for a customer. She's getting married in December and she just wanted a very simple dress. This has been tried and fit perfectly. So just to show you what I do before I make anything for customers is to make a sample first and then have them fit it. Once it's fit correctly and they're satisfied, then I go ahead and I would just rip this out and put it onto the fabric, cut out my fabric, and then proceed to sew it up. So what I'll do, I'll just show you what it looks like. This is the back. It has one invisible zipper in the back, and she wants short sleeves. She wants that boat neck and just a straight dress, and that's all she wants. The dress is going to be made from the silk material. It's very pretty, and she wants it lined as well. Alright, so stay tuned and you'll see exactly what I do. Alright, so as you can see, I finished rip open the sample. So this is my sleeve. This is the sleeve that the lady wants. So when I make the sample, I made two different length of sleeves so she can choose whichever one she wanted. So for this dress, she wanted the shorter sleeve. And this is the sleeve that she wants. This is the back of the dress and that's the front of the dress. So what I'm going to do now is lay this sample down onto my fabric and I'm going to cut her dress out. So now I'm going to take my pieces, and for the front I'm just going to keep it folded like this, and I'm going to make sure and put it on the folded part of the fabric. Then you can pin your pattern, your sample, in place. And for the hem, I'm just going to give it 1.5 inches. Alright, so once you finish with that, just make sure and notch all your seams. Alright, you see the hem that I'm going to be putting, the hem allowance is 1.5 inches. So what I will do, I'm just going to turn this up just like this, just to make it easy on myself. And just pin that, so when I cut I would have that angle on the hem as well. Alright, so now I'm going to just cut my sleeve out. Okay, so what we're going to do is to make sure and notch the front and the back. And for the front I give it 1 notch and 2 notches at the back. So if you happen to do that, you can do the same thing by folding it under and pin, and then you cut your sleeve. Alright, so next I'm going to cut my facings. Yeah, and that's my back facing right here. When I cut my lining would be attached to this facing to make it flow nicely at the back. Alright, and this is my front facing here. Alright, so all my pieces are cut, and all I need to do is cut out my lining. What I do sometimes when I'm putting in an invisible zip, it depends on what I'm doing. I would press this open. You know, it has a slight little roll right here, so you just press it open, go all the way down on both sides, and then when you stitch it, you'll see how neat it comes out. When I'm ready to do this, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is to make a mask. So this is my pattern here, and then I'm going to put this on the mask just to give it a little bit of touch. I'm going to be cutting 4 pieces from this fabric. And as the fabric has a pattern on it, I want the patterns, all the pattern to go in the same direction. So I'm going to place this on top of this fabric going this way. I finished cut the mask out here. And next I'm going to take these filters and I'm going to put them on 1/2 of the mask. So next I'm going to sew this on. Yeah, so that's done. I have my pipe cleaner. I curve the ends in so that you don't have that sharp bit at the end. And then now I'm going to cut my elastics. Yeah, I'm going to measure about 6 inches. Yeah, and I have all my mask pieces here just to put together. So we're gonna take the two, I'm gonna take the two halves that have the filter on it. You're gonna put them together, right sides together, and you're gonna stitch right around here. Now open the seams, give this fine stitch all the way down on both sides. The next thing I like to do, right at the very ends, I like to fold them in half. Alright, and this is just how it looks here. Just gives it a nicer shape and also a nice finish right here. When you give that dart, make sure that your darts on both sides, the length are the same. And it's just basically a 1/4 inch stitch, and you just taper it off. I'm gonna put my elastics in. Alright, so that's a 1/4 inch stitch down. So all together from the top, you can measure a 1/2 inch, and then with that 1/2 inch you put your elastic right at that 1/2 inch point. Alright, and once you do that, you can stitch that down, and you do the same thing on this end here. Alright, and as you can see where the elastic is right here, you do the same thing on the other side. Right sides together, you do the same thing, you stitch right across here. So for the sides, you make your darts. Yep, the next step is to pin your mask together, right sides together. Make sure that your seams are matching. You're gonna leave open about 3 inches or so, just enough so you can turn the mask inside out. So you can just notch it just to remind you, basically. From this notch, I'm gonna stitch all the way around. Come back to this notch here. And this appears to be lying flat. Alright, so the next step is to sew in your pipe cleaner. Put it right in the middle of the seam here. Okay, and then on the pipe cleaner, you're going to stitch the zigzag stitch over it. Just it right here. This curve right here, you can just notch it so that when you turn, you get that nice smooth curve. Next thing, you clip the corners. Alright, so now I'm going to turn my mask inside out. You simply turn them in like so. You can pin that. You can go ahead and you can press this around and then give it that top stitch to finish it off. But this area that we have open, I'm gonna hand sew it. You see where it flush right here. Alright, so I'm gonna go to the ironing board and just give it a nice little press, and this is what it looks like press. And this is what the hem that I did earlier on my hand, this is what it looks like. So when you have these kind of openings, I think the best thing is to try and hem it from the inside. And to start my stitch, I like to start from the bottom here as well. Right from the center seam and go all the way around and meet back here. Kind of make it look a lot neater. cut the front bit of the lining, so I'm going to show you how I do the back. Did it the same way. I just wanted to move a bit faster with that. Just take your dress and you put it down onto your lining so that you don't waste any material. I'm going to put the back to this selvage. Alright, as you can tell, I cut the sleeve a bit shorter, and this is because it's gonna join to the hem, that it would have a nice finish. So these are my pieces cut. Everything is cut out. This is the zipper I'm gonna use, and these are the loops. Alright, so this is the back facing right here, and then this is the back of the dress, the lining half. With right sides together, I'm gonna pin these. Then you go ahead and you stitch the 1/4 inch seam allowance right across. Always make sure you match your notches. Once you have that match, you know you're on the right track. You're going to find the center on the front facing and also my front lining. You do the same thing as you did in the back. Alright, the next step is to put the darts into my dress. Hi guys, I've finished putting all my darts. So I'm going to take my lining back and front, and I'm going to be putting right sides together and join the shoulders. Alright, so far this is what the lining looks like. Yeah, and this is going to be the back with my 1/2 inch stitch, seam allowance with the zipper at the back. And right sides together, I'm gonna join them like this. Then I'm gonna go down the side and give it my 1/2 inch stitch. I'm gonna measure my zipper down up to about 1 inch away from the zipper head, and that is 19 inches. Alright, so I'm gonna measure down 19 inches and just give it a notch. Okay, so here I am at the ironing board with my zipper. It has a slight roll right here. Open that roll and press it. So you take your iron without the steam and you press open the roll. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to turn the seam here in about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to do that all the way down to where I have my 19 inches mark, which is right here. I will just go ahead and give it a press just to make a seam line. Alright, right side's up. That's your left side, that's your right side. The zipper, right side facing you. Flip the zipper over like so. Okay, so you're going to take this right side of the zipper the left side of your dress back, right sides together. You're going to place the zipper at the top, and the zipper teeth is in line with your seam that you press going along here. And then you stitch. You can pin those two together as well, but in this case I'm just going to go ahead and stitch them. Alright, so I finished putting the zipper into the dress itself. So when you finish, always check to make sure that your zipper is not caught. So when you stitch from the bottom, you come all the way up with the same seam allowance, and instead of finishing at the 19 inches mark, I'm going to come up 1 inch. So at the end of it, my zip going to be 18 inches. Once you follow the instructions, by the time you finish putting in your invisible zipper, this will look like it's just a seam going down the back. Alright, I'm going to go over to the ironing board and I'm going to press my seam open. Alright, then I'm going to show you the next step. Alright, I went ahead and stitched a 1/4 of an inch stitch around the arm and around the neck, and this is just to prevent it from fraying any further. With the right sides up, I'm going to place the right side of the lining down onto the fabric itself, onto the main dress. Same seam allowance. You're going to place this notch right above, right where this notch is. And now you can pin that in place. And you can go ahead and pin all the way down. So this is it right here. And then next thing I'm going to do is to stitch it in. And I'm going to use my zipper foot and stitch all the way down. But the only difference is that you don't have to stitch it as close as when you stitch the fabric onto the zip. Alright, I'm finished stitching the lining onto the zipper. and this is what the lining piece looks like. And you're gonna stitch it all the way up and close it off right here at the very end of the zipper. Alright, and this is what it looks like right here. So this is a great way to put your invisible zipper in. I'm gonna go ahead and press the lining seams and I'll come right back. Alright, so this is the progress of the dress with the lining, and this is exactly what the lady wants. Simple boat neck, 2 dots, a swing dress. So the next step for me is to basically close the sides and put the sleeves. Right, if you look closely, you can see how it is here. So once you put in an invisible zipper and you follow these instructions, you can't go wrong with that. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is close up the neck. Alright, I'm going to close the neck up, so I'm going to open the zipper. I'm going to pin the shoulders together, right sides together. Then I'm going to continue to pin the front and the back neck together. Alright, so now I'm finished. I'm going to go ahead and stitch the neck 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Alright, so I'm finished stitching around the neck, and just give it a couple of notches along the seams. For the corner of the zipper, top of the zipper here, you can just cut it like this, just so that when you turn you'll have that sharp edge. Check and see if your zip is the same at the top. Alright, so as you can see, there's an opening at the top right here. This is where I'm going to put a hook and an eye right here. Alright, so that's fine. And then the next step is to give it a fine top stitch on the lining around the neck. So I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to do just that. So I'm going to start about 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches away from the zipper. Alright, I'm finished with the neck. I just gave it that fine top stitch. You see, and it's important that when you're making a boat neck like this, you're going to come like it's gonna come in a V shape. So make sure when you're stitching, your needle always stop right on the seam before you make the other turn. Okay, so the next step is to close the dress up. So I'm gonna go ahead and stitch up the sides of the dress. Go over to the ironing board and open my seams with the iron. So on the one notch indicate that that's the front of the sleeve. So what we want to do, right sides together, you take your lining and the side that has the one notch, you make sure it's on the side that has the one notch on the fabric itself. You're going to put those together, right sides together. Then what you can do, you can just flip this over onto the wrong side now. And you're going to pin your sleeve and the lining together all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around here. Make sure that you have your seams line up. I'm going to go ahead and stitch the other one in. Alright, what is this now? I went ahead and overlocked the insides of the dress. First I'm going to baste them in. This is how I do it. I baste my sleeves in first before I attempt to stitch it in on the machine. So this is my front, that's the back. So what I'm going to look for is my center seam. And you're going to make sure and join your center seam, the side seam of the dress and the seam on the sleeve. You know, you can pin that. Alright, so what I did, I went ahead and just sew this sleeve in just so you could see what it looks like. Alright, this sleeve is only sewn in by hand for now. I'm gonna have the customer try it on while it's just basting. So if there's any adjustments, it'll be easier for me to just take it out, do my adjustments, and just continue with it. And this is the right side of it. And just a simple sleeve. Right, then you take the top of the sleeve where this notch is and you pin it to the top of the shoulder seam. Now turn my dress on the wrong side. Alright, the next step is to go ahead and pin the sleeve in all the way around. You go over it with thread and needle and do a base stitch. And this is what it looks like on the right side. Yeah. Turn your lining onto the wrong side. And right sides together, seams together. I went ahead and basted the hem and baste the lining and the dress hem as well. So this is ready now for the customer to do a final fit, and once everything is all right, I'll just go and finish the sleeve, just stitch the sleeve in with the machine and do my hem, and that's it. Press it up and the dress will be ready for her. Hey guys, the customer has tried the dress yesterday and she's very happy with it. It fits perfectly. So I'm just gonna hem the dress and then go on the machine and stitch around the sleeves and give it a nice press, and that's it. The best thing to do is you can just turn your hem slightly, pick up a teeny bit of the fabric underneath, and then you pick a bit on the top that you turn. When you turn it onto this side, you can hardly see anything. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way around and do the same thing on this part of the dress.